Navarro on the run. Navarro's going to keep it. Navarro for 6. Touchdown, Bobcat.
I feel I had a hard time staying in my own lane.
Oh my goodness!
Brett Murdoch, pick 6. Harbath inside the 30, the 20. Blake Harbath will score.
And Mendoza takes a big hit. He never saw it coming. Trey White got in there.
There's his man, Rucker. And nobody's going to catch him. Goodbye.
Intercepted.
Tyree Skipper, touchdown.
Telly again, why not? A step forward and make it 2 for Telly.
Quarterback keeper showing off the speed, steps on the gas, untouched.
The G5 Hive. All G5, all the time.
Welcome to the G5 Hive Live. We are excited to kick off the 2025 college football season with you. And as always, we'll be bringing you G5 college football coverage that you love each and every week. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. If you're watching us on X, please give us a follow, a like, and a retweet. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review. I am Luke, and I'm joined by my co-host, Justice. And tonight, we are joined by a special guest, Colton Pool from Hero Sports, to help us kick off the 2025 college football season. Welcome back, Justice, and thanks for joining us tonight, Colton.
Yeah, absolutely. This will be fun.
Yeah,
Can't wait. It's just been doing this Worker Bee series, and I'm different. This is a different intro. I'm used to. I've got this whole other verse just memorized, and I couldn't do that tonight.
Yeah, I'm excited to get back. College football's here, less than 2 weeks. Week 0 starting off, and excited for another season of G5 Hive Live, so to speak. Colton, before we kind of jump into things, I want to kind of give you an opportunity to kind of tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and Hero Sports and what you guys do over there.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me. Thanks for the opportunity to be on here. I've been on Hero Sports. This will be season 3 for me now. Hero Sports has covered FCS football for a number of years. My colleague Sam Herder was kind of spearheading that, and then a couple years ago they wanted to expand into the group of 5, and then I kind of came into the equation, and now we sort of cover the sort of mid-major level of college football together. It's certainly I guess a subset of college football that is super fun to watch and seems to be more and more swept under the rug, we'll say, by the bigger national spotlights. So I love doing this. I love covering these teams, and like I said, it's fun. It's fun football, that's a little bit about me.
Well, last offseason, you guys started a weekly G5 Top 25 poll. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so when we first started it, it was just us, just me and our crew of writers. That was a couple years ago, and then last year we decided to expand that out to. We had a beat writer from at least one team beat writer from every G5 conference, and a few nationally focused outlets as well. You guys included, and I think we've got at least 2 beat writers from every conference now, and a few other names kind of well known in the G5 space, and. I think it's good to get all those sorts of perspectives and put them together, and it kind of gives you a glimpse of what the people who actually focus and actually watch these games, what they think of these teams. I think it's good that we do that now, and and some of the teams take notice as well. So yeah, and anything to get more attention onto these well-deserving teams.
And we just submitted our preseason votes last week. So when can we expect the preseason poll to be out?
Yeah, that's coming out Wednesday, I believe noon Eastern, and as well as our preseason All-American teams. We're releasing those at the same time.
Awesome. You wanna give us any sneak peeks, maybe into a couple of your top picks, or maybe some that you think folks might not be expecting?
Well, the team that at the top of my ballot is a team that everyone is probably going to be expecting, and that's a little team called Boise State. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're pretty stinking good at this football thing. I mean, the unfortunate part is not unfortunate, but when I was looking at it and considering who I was going to have at number one and who I, going into the season was going to be my favorite to, get that CFP spot, I wanted to be contrarian. I wanted to come up with some new take, some new up and coming team. But you look at that roster, and I know Ashton Genty's gone, but man, they are still loaded. And maybe the identity looks a little different now that Maddox Madsen, he had a full year starting, and he's coming back with all the experience and tools around him now. So maybe they're a little more balanced, we'll say, than they were last year, as run heavy as they were. But man, up front, both sides of the ball, they're well balanced. Their coaching staff, most of the coaching staff coming back in the roles they were. It's just I can't in good conscience not pick them in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean we had the same number one. It's kind of like, to be the man, you got to beat the man, right? And they had such an outstanding season a year ago. I think, like, at least right now, they are and they're the betting favorite, right? Like from a G5 perspective, and it's not really close in terms of like the odds from the odds makers that they're the G5 representative. I personally do wish I could take Boise State versus the house, and I could bet on the house, like for it to be somebody else, because I don't think it'll be them at the end of the day. But obviously there's a reason why they're the favorite today.
Yeah, it's a lot of at least my ballot. It was a lot of the usual suspects. It was I had Memphis number 2. They're my preseason pick to win the American. I got James Madison 3, Navy 4, Tulane 5. So I guess no real big shockers. I do have San Jose State 6, and we'll get into the Mountain West in a little bit, but I am very high on that team going into this year.
Yeah, I know Luke is too. I think we have San Jose State 4th, and that I was gonna say that's probably our biggest shocker in our top 25.
Yeah, there's a lot to like with that team. The talent that they got coming back, the coaching staff, Coach Ken, showed that he can lead that team to some success in that conference. So, yeah, on paper, are they better than Boise State right now? I don't know about that, but again, a lot to like there.
Having Memphis up there, I don't know. That's kind of shocking for me because they just lost so much, and you get a new quarterback in there. You lost some key parts to the defense. I feel like the first part of the year is going to be feeling out who they are, and they've got like a tough schedule. Personally, I like Navy in the American, with a lot of continuity coming back, but I think we had Memphis coming in at 10 on our ballot.
Yeah, Memphis, I'll give you that's a tough one because I Ryan Silverfield, great coach, and I think there's a lot to. I have a lot of faith in that staff that the transfers that they'll have coming in, including a quarterback. I think they'll be in a good position. But I think there's probably 5 teams that if you pick them to win the American this year, I wouldn't blame you. So one of them being Navy, Blake Horvath, he's a dude. He is fun to watch, and he's going to be fantastic again this season. It's gonna be an interesting league, no doubt about it.
It'll be interesting to kind of see who does get that G5 spot, because I feel like, last year, like, I think everyone kind of expected, beat Boise State, Memphis, maybe Tulane, were kind of like the early favorites, right? And I don't know, like, it seems more wide open this year, in my opinion, in terms of who it can be. One thing that always kind of troubles me, I feel like last year they absolutely got it right. Boise State was 100% clear best team in the G5. 2 years ago, before the playoffs, when Liberty was the G5 representative in the New Year's Six Bowl, like, in my opinion, like, they totally didn't get it right. Like, they might have had the best record, but they weren't the best team. And so sometimes, like, I feel like, especially when it comes to G5, like, the voters don't spend the time figuring out who is the best team, and they just look at records. They don't do that for the P4, really. I don't think. I think they do a good job of ironing those kind of things out for those teams, but feels like for the G5 they don't do as good a job.
Yeah, it's a little inconsistent, we'll say, because you bring up the Liberty example, and that team was good, but I think it was tough to gauge how good it was in Conference USA, because they were, if memories, they were pretty dominant that year, in a, we'll say ho hum Conference USA, but yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember. SMU won the American that year. I mean, that team was pretty stacked as well, but they had 2 losses, so like. But that was also the same year, I think, that Florida State didn't get in despite being undefeated. So the logic was a little inconsistent.
Yeah, it is sometimes frustrating, and it's frustrating for the P4s, I feel like, but it's even, I don't know, I feel like it's even more frustrating for the G5. So I just hope, like, whoever it ends up being, like, that it's like clearly the best team, and not necessarily the team that only has 1 loss and played a extremely weak schedule like Liberty did 2 years ago.
Right. And I believe again this year too.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into Conference USA, but yeah, they're in general, their schedules aren't the greatest.
But let's talk some college football playoffs. G5 rep for the 2025 college football playoffs. Colton, who are your sleepers, dark horses?
Yeah, sleepers. I mean, if I'm picking a team that's off the radar here at this point, not those top teams from the American, not Boise State, not even some of those top teams from the like the Sun Belt, the Mountain West, the American, the teams that you would probably suspect would be in that conversation. I picked Buffalo to win the MAC, so I think Buffalo is a great dark horse, just because that roster is so loaded, and I think they have potential to pull off some wins in that non-con. So I'll go Buffalo here in terms of dark horses.
I'm going to stick with you in the MAC and go with Toledo. You got Kentucky. You've got some games, Washington State, that would have the perception for the people who are not deeply watching G5 football, that they would see those games and like, oh, they got these big wins over P4 teams. I honestly, like, you could just say whoever wins the MAC championship could be that dark horse. Justice, what about you?
Yeah, both of those are great picks. I'm not going to go to MAC. Again, like, I'm trying to think more in terms of like national, like who's a dark horse there. I mean, I feel like you could pretty much pick anybody but Boise State, and it'd be a dark horse in terms of the general public. Toledo's a great one. That's who I was going to pick. But I'll pick someone different since Luke took them. But yeah, Toledo's, to Luke's point, Toledo's schedule shapes up really nice for them to have some P4 wins and do really well in conference and potentially, kind of seal that bid. But I'm going to go Tulane because I feel like they also have a good schedule. I'm sure the line's out. I don't know what it is. I'm sure Northwestern's a favorite week 1 against Tulane. But I think Tulane wins that game outright. So yeah, if I'm getting points, I'm taking Tulane in that game. They play against Duke week 3. Darian Mensah comes back to New Orleans, like Luke said earlier. I think Tulane wins that game. Then they play Ole Miss week 4. Do I think they beat Ole Miss? Probably not, but I think there's a chance. Ole Miss breaking in a new quarterback, Austin Simmons. They lost a lot on that team from a year ago, and so it wouldn't completely shock me if Tulane beats Ole Miss or at least keeps the game competitive, right? And then I already picked them to win the American. So I think their schedule gives them opportunity to kind of prove that, hey, we should be the G5 representative in the college football playoffs. I feel like, we talked about earlier, there's kind of, in my opinion, there's 2 paths. One is to, win all your games and maybe play a weak schedule, but you win all your games. So there's the record path. And then there's the other path, and that's, playing some P4s and winning those games, proving your worthiness, so to speak, in terms of the general public and those college football playoff voters. So Tulane would be my dark horse.
And to kind of add to that, Justice, you talk about maybe a coaching for, maybe that potential jump to the P4. Summerall's going to be a name that's going to be talked when there is an opportunity. I think he will be a name that circles around and will be likely to get a P4 job next year. All right. Colton, who are some serious playoff contenders?
Yeah, I think each of us have kind of touched on the ingredients that you need to be a G5 team that makes it to the CFP. The roster, talent and coaching. Obviously got to have the conference championship, but also have the schedule overall, meaning non-conference, meaning you win 3 out of 4 games at least, and maybe you get a P4 upset or L against one of those top-notch P4 teams. And for all those reasons, that's kind of why I picked Buffalo, is because I think they have a chance to upset Minnesota on the road. And Troy, UConn, I think there's a great chance that Buffalo goes 11-1 during the regular season. But if I'm going strictly based off of talent on the roster and not looking in coaching and not looking, too much closer than that, like I said, the Boise State, Memphis, JMU, Navy, Tulane are my top 5 teams in my G5 top 25. And so to me, kind of taking everything out of the equation, to me, those are the teams that have what it takes to play well enough to be in that conversation.
My serious contenders, I think anybody from the MAC, whoever wins that championship. I think anybody from the from the American. If USF can make that championship game, I think they're going to be that sexy team. They're going to be the one that's fun to watch. Byron Brown, what can Brown do for you? He can bring you a championship. I think Navy has a realistic chance, but it would be like one of those. It'll be this weird thing. Like last year, we're kind of hoping, like, hey, you could be the rep. But I think this year, if they do have that legitimate chance, I think you're going to see public perception say, like, we don't want to see Navy in there. Like it's not fun to watch, even though they totally would deserve it. And then I think whoever wins the Mountain West, and then obviously your biggest opportunities there are Liberty and Western Kentucky, and we've talked about just how Justice talked about your road to the record. You might not play a whole bunch of tough games, but I think realistically, your serious contender is going to be whoever comes out of the Mountain West because of public perception of the Mountain West and what they are. Honestly, I think the MAC should get the next nod, but I think the MAC's just been down for a couple of years, that there is a perception that the MAC teams just aren't as good. When I think this year, there are several teams. We talked about Miami of Ohio, Buffalo, Toledo, NIU. There's a lot of good teams in the MAC this year and a fun team to watch. But I think your serious contender comes out of the Mountain West. Justice, what about you?
So for me, like the serious contenders, I'm just going to kind of go conference by conference. The American is Tulane or Navy. I think they have the talent and the schedule to be able to prove their point. The Navy really only has what I would consider one big opportunity, and that's against Notre Dame, week 11, right? If they're able to pull off that upset, I think it's going to be tough for them, provided they don't lose other games that they shouldn't. I think it's going to be tough for them to not be, a favorite, for that G5 representative in the college football playoffs. When I look at Conference USA, really, to me, the only serious contender I see is Western Kentucky. Again, I think they'll have the best record. And then I think that schedule, like if they beat Toledo week 2, they probably only end up with one loss, and that's against LSU in week 13. And so I think for that reason, you got to put them in the bucket of a serious contender. When I look at the MAC, to me, it's really just Toledo I view as the most serious, just because I think, there's no one on their schedule they can't beat. They get an SEC team week 1 against Kentucky. They play at Washington State in week 9. They get Western Kentucky in week 2. So I think the schedule sets up nicely for them to get a lot of wins and to be able to prove, hey, we beat an SEC team. Hey, we beat Western Kentucky, the best team in Conference USA. So I think the schedule sets up well for Toledo, for the MAC. When I look at the Mountain West, to me, the contenders are really Boise State and San Jose State. I think those are the two teams. Again, that gives them the schedule and opportunities are there. Boise State's like obviously, they're starting off in position 1, and so they don't have to necessarily prove as much as some of these other teams do, just because they're going to start off the process at a much higher advantage than any of these other teams. San Jose State, they do play Texas at week 2. What if they play Texas tough, right? Texas is a team that's one of the favorites, if not the favorite, to win the whole thing, right? And so if they can play Texas tough in week 2, show, hey, we're not in like 2 different leagues here. They do get Stanford in week 5, which is a game I fully expect them to win. And then, like I said, they avoid Boise State and UNLV at least until the Mountain West Championship game. And then I look at the Sun Belt. I think, for the Sun Belt to win it, I think if a Sun Belt team goes undefeated in conference play, in my opinion, they deserve to be the G5 college football representative. When I look at that this year, I think it kind of boils down to 2 teams that I think could potentially do that. They're both in the East, and that's JMU and Old Dominion. I look at their non-conference schedules. JMU plays at Louisville. They play at Liberty. They play Washington State. If they can pull off the upset against Louisville, they have a realistic shot of not losing an out of conference game. Couple that with a strong conference schedule, again, I think they have a great shot. And then you look at Old Dominion's non-conference schedule. Again, they have two really good opportunities to prove it, and then a third, good opportunity against another G5. They play at Indiana week 1, at Virginia Tech in week 3, and then they play Liberty at home week 5. Stranger things have happened, right? If they can win those 3 games, I think you'd be hard pressed to say they should not be the G5 representative, especially if they can beat Indiana week 1. Indiana, made the college football playoffs a year ago. They were kind of the Cinderella story from a year ago. And I don't want to sound like a homer, but like it's not out of the realm of possibility. I think Kurt Signetti knows that. In my opinion, and it's my opinion only, it's not an accident that Kurt Signetti recruited Grant Wilson to come over to Indiana, right? And it's because he doesn't want to lose week 1 against Old Dominion. Obviously, he's familiar with Old Dominion. He came from JMU, right? But, he was looking for any advantage he could get to learn about Old Dominion, the offense, etc. And what better way to do it than to bring last year's starting quarterback over to sit the bench on your team. And so, I think that was a shrewd move by Kurt Signetti, but I also look at it as a compliment, right? There's a reason why he did that, and that's because he respects Old Dominion and the talent they have. And so those are kind of like my serious contenders from each conference to make the college football playoffs.
One team we did not talk about that I think could have an outside chance to make it, UConn. Can we talk about UConn a little bit? They're independent, so it's hard.
Well, the problem is they're not going to be a conference champion. That's where the catch is. And so for them to make it, you're going to have 2 G5 teams, which just isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, you look at their schedule, they go to Syracuse. Syracuse, obviously they're not going to be the team that they were last year. But like, if they were to win that game, I wouldn't be super shocked. Maybe Syracuse is trying to figure out who they were. I'm trying to remember. UConn had 9 wins last season. Like, they played really, really well last year. You go to Buffalo if you can get that win, and Buffalo happens to win the MAC. You've got a game at home against Duke at the end of the season. What is Duke at the end of the season? Do they give up? I think. And then they go to Boston College. If they were to win that game, I'm not going to say Boston College is like a great team. I don't know. I feel like there's like last year how it came down to like the last game or 2 of the season when it was Navy, Army, where we thought, hey, so there might be one of these teams that make it in with Boise State. You just got to get over that Notre Dame hurdle. I think UConn Huskies are like a low-key, just interesting watch this year to see what happens because and maybe that's what hurts them is the kind of the parity in the conferences this year where we don't have a Boise State that's a dominant, and maybe that ends up hurting them. But I don't want to forget UConn.
No, UConn's going to be a good team. It's just the reality is they'll have to go undefeated to be in that conversation. And, to do that at any level in any schedule, that's a thin margin of error, unfortunately, for the Huskies.
Yeah, I just think, I just don't see a world where 2 G5 teams get in the college football playoffs. And that's what would absolutely have to happen for UConn to make it. There was a chance, there was a very thin needle for that to happen last year, right? With Army or Navy. But then they both lose to Notre Dame, and that kind of goes out the window. So, I don't disagree that UConn is a good team, and maybe they will deserve like some consideration. I just think the reality of the situation is the people that vote are to Colton's point, UConn would have to go undefeated, and then still I think get some breaks kind of go their way where like maybe the Big 12 team has 3 or 4 losses, right? The top Big 12 team. And so I just feel like so many things would have to go right to get 2 G5s in the college football playoffs I think it's worse than finding a needle in a haystack, right? Like it's just the chances of it happening aren't very good at all.
I wanted to give UConn some love. That was the main thing. We didn't talk about UConn at all. I think they're going to be a great team.
No,
Let's
they
get
will. They
into
will.
the G5 rep for the college football playoffs. Colton, who you got?
Have I shown my hand enough here yet? I'm going Boise State. 7 all-conference players returning. That coaching staff showed they can get a team there, and I think they'll do it again. There is some tough games on their schedule. To my point earlier, not only do you have to have the talent, not only do you got to win the conference title, you got to stand above the other G5 teams by getting those non-con wins. And South Florida, road trip in August. To your point before, Luke, that's not going to be an easy game whatsoever. Eastern Washington, App State, they could be better. They could bounce back after last year. We'll see. And then at Notre Dame, obviously getting to the championship last year, we'll see if, how well they, maintain their level of success. They don't need to win that game, but Boise State absolutely needs to be competitive in that game to, stand out, similar to what they did last year with Oregon, right? Where they, played Oregon pretty close and showed they belonged on the field with that sort of team. But I think they're capable of doing that, and it's a boring pick. But I just there's no point. There's nothing I can point to that makes me think that there's a better team out there for this. So I'm thinking we'll see. And to our points before about you need some notoriety, you need some energy to like Boise State being in the AP top 25 going into the season. There's a name recognition there, so I think the margin of error is a little wider for a team like Boise State. So that's why it's a boring pick, but I'm going with the Broncos.
I'm going to go with San Jose State. This is Sparta, all in. I think that Central Michigan game turns up to be a big game come the end of the year. With I think Central Michigan can do some damage in the MAC. And when I'm looking at these teams, like what games do you have to get through healthy? Like Justice said, if they can show that they're not in like a whole different division when they play Texas, I think that helps. And then I fully anticipate them to beat Stanford, like Justice said too. And then the rest of the schedule doesn't look too bad. If they can get through Hawaii, obviously Air Force is always going to be tough, but they don't have to play Boise. They don't have to play UNLV. I think the schedule sets up well. Like you said, you get some of that clout from the Mountain West. I think that helps, gives you the margin of error a little bit more. Maybe that. Because they play Texas and I think they are the number one in the country right now, are expected to win. Let's talk about it. Arch is supposed to be great. Like, what if he is trying to figure it out? What if they're having some troubles at the beginning of the year and San Jose knocks them off, or just San Jose makes it real competitive? I think getting Texas early in the season helps. Give me San Jose State Spartan as our G5 representative. Justice, who you got?
I am going to go with Tulane. Again, I think that I've laid it out already, but I think the schedule sets up nicely for them. I think they have one of the best defenses in the G5, and getting Jake Retzlaff at quarterback is huge. I think they're going to have a probably 2 P4 wins under their belt. And then if they can win the American on top of that, it's going to be tough, I think, for someone else to kind of overtake them in terms of that college football playoff. So yeah, give me the green wave for the G5 representative of the college football playoffs.
That's it. We did it.
Well, we have one question in the chat here. that they wanted our opinions on before we go tonight. So Connor's asking, which G5 conferences do we think have the most pronounced tiers within a conference? For me, the two right off the top of my head are Conference USA, and the MAC. I feel like Conference USA is, for me, the worst conference in FBS. They have some teams that are really bad. Hopefully, Kennesaw State gets things turned around with Jerry Mack. You got Florida International. That's historically been really, really bad. They got Willie Simmons. And then you got the two unknowns, right? The two teams jumping up from the FCS in Missouri State and Delaware. And so I think that's the one where I see, I guess, the biggest tiers. And then, like, I think you could argue, like, the worst two or three teams in the MAC are the worst two or three teams in all of college football. And so those probably the two for me, I feel like, have the most pronounced tiers. What do you guys think?
Well, when you say like that tiers, like, I don't know, I almost kind of see the MAC and the American as kind of roughly the same. Like, I feel like they're similar in that tier, but then, like you said, that bottom of the tier is definitely the most pronounced. Colton, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you in terms of there's tiers at the top or teams at the top and teams at the bottom, and there's a very clear divide. But when I first read that question, I thought of more than two tiers, as in your elites, your middle, and your clear bottom. And the Mountain West sticks out to me there. I think, you got Boise State, UNLV, San Jose State at the top. You got a good middle pack. This year could be Air Force, Colorado State. And then you've got your New Mexico, Nevada. We'll see if that holds up like that. But I think when we're talking three or more, the Mountain West came to mind for me.
That is a good one. That's a good one too. Yeah, like you said, Nevada and New Mexico have not been good as of late. Utah State, even a year ago, wasn't all that great.
Although Bronco Mendenhall, I think that
it's hard to bet against Bronco. Seeing what he did at New Mexico last year, like, I don't know, Luke and I sung his praises before the season ever started. I think that is a good one. That is a good one there, where there is a really clear top and a really clear bottom, and then some guys in the middle. Absolutely.
Colton, we want to thank you for joining us tonight to help us kick off the 2025 college football season. Before we can go, can you tell our listeners where they can find you, Hero Sports, and maybe some things that you have coming up this season?
Yeah, you find all our stuff at Hero Sports News on X, Twitter, and then I'm at Contenders Reporter. And then Hero Sports, where we have all our content. We are doing a preview on every single G5 team, as well as our other FCS content. We've got our preseason All-America teams and top 25 coming out this week, and we'll have a top 25, which again you guys are partaking in, and thank you for that. We're going to be writing all sorts of stuff, game previews, some betting content, some features, analysis, you name it, we'll have it there. And like in true Group of Five fashion, starting the show late and ending it, at least Eastern time, ending it the next day. So respect to you guys for doing this, and thank you for having me.
Well, Colton, absolutely, would love to have you back another time and do it again.
Absolutely.
It's our first live show of the kind of kicking off the 2025 season. We hope everyone has enjoyed the 2025 edition of our Worker Bee series, where we deep dive into every G5 college football team, bringing you the most comprehensive team previews available. But stay tuned, as we still have a few more of those episodes coming out over the next 2 weeks. Also, if you've not had a chance to check out our player interviews, we've done over 20 this offseason. Please do that as we get to know a lot of very special young men who will be making big impacts on and off the field in 2025. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. On X, give us a follow. And if you're listening on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, please subscribe and leave those 5-star ratings and reviews. We are so grateful for the immense amount of support we have received this year. We hit a couple big milestones since we last went live. We hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Let's go.
We got a shout out on the Solid Verbal for our Worker Bee series. And like none of that happens without you guys, without your support. So kudos to you guys. We sincerely thank each and every one of you. And with that, be sure to join us next week as we preview week 0 of the 2025 season. And we will talk about the Hero Sports G5 Top 25 preseason poll. We'll break down what the consensus was, what our differences were, and maybe who we have ranked, who didn't make it in the consensus and all that. So yeah, be sure to join us next Monday, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. And until then, we are the G5 Hive.